Nigeria's state oil company, NNPC Limited, has increased the pump price of petrol, fueling panic buying, queues and scarcity around the country. It comes 2 days after President Bola Tinubu's inaugural speech on the removal of fuel subsidy. A few hours ago, a meeting of organized labor unions with federal government officials ended in a stalemate. The representatives of the labor unions insist the government must revert to old prices, but the government says market forces will determine prices. Both parties say talks will continue.
The prayers of NLC is that we go back to status quo, negotiate, think of alternatives and all the effects and how to manage the effects this action is going to have on the people. If it is an action that must take off, and before then, conscious people, labor, management, government should be able to think of what will happen at the end of June. You don't start it before the time.
Administration.
Fine, the last administration made it up to end of June. Why can't we respect the sanctity of even that law that provided for that expenditure up to the end of June?
What has happened in terms of, as at today, has not shown what was written in his address. So all we've said before now was that, just as alluded to by my colleague as well, was that we ought to have sat down and have this conversation. They told us that they were not removing subsidy. So there was no conversation whatsoever. So for over a year, there wasn't formal engagements and formal meetings. And because there were informal engagements and meetings, that is why we found ourselves here today.
The meaning of deregulation is that it depends on the market force, on the price of crude of today. Tomorrow it could be different. If the price of crude goes up, you know what that means. If the price of crude internationally goes down, it reflects on the price. There will be interventions. We're not calling it palliative this around, but there will be interventions, at least so that the impact on the poorest of the poor in the society will be very minimal.
Well, there's Mr. Dele Alake, Comrade Joe Ajara, and Comrade Festus Osif of TUC post the meeting with the federal government and labor unions. Okay, what's your take on this story?
Well, it's a tough one, and the reason it's a tough one for me is because I really desire to see this government do well, but they seem to be flunking the exams, and it worries me. This is the beginning of a great new thing. That is the prayer of every Nigerian, that this government will do well. And when you say that you are going to let go of subsidy, and a lot of people were excited, because I know that I saw a lot of people that were saying, fantastic, the president is right on point and he's done this. Now, you should have taken time out. I did say on this very show a couple of days ago that I expect the president to get no more sleep because he murdered sleep by removing the subsidy. This is something that people have been talking about for more than 10 years, probably 15 years more. And if you're going to take it off, consult with the stakeholders, meet with them, have the conversation, prepare them for it, prepare Nigerians for what is coming. The former president had said they're going to take it off. People were arguing about it. Once this president knew that he was going to do it, the consultation should have started before the swearing in, before the inauguration. That's what should have been done. But where we are now, expectation is that the president will spend a lot of time with the major stakeholders, especially the labor unions, and get them to fall in line and align with what his strategies will be, and then let us see it. But the only thing there for me is, you said a month from now, 30 days, and all of a sudden it seems like we don't have enough in the tank. It seems like the tank farms are empty, and that is why we're having this scarcity. We're expecting to see Mr. Mele Kyari this morning, and then we'll be able to ask him. So I will not make prejudgment. I'll just wait. Let's hear from him. That's my thought.
All right, thank you. Fine.
Ayo, a lot has to be said, and I hope I get the time. I think we made the argument here yesterday, and I repeat for the upton time. I am not against subsidy removal, because I see a lot of the blowbacks. But when we make arguments, let's make it in the interest of our country. Let's also think of people that do not have anything. My argument was it was not well planned, and it is obvious. Is it now that he's supposed to be talking to Labour? No, he ought to have done that. Maybe he had a transition committee. What were the issues the transition committee discussed? Wasn't subsidy on it? Maybe he said he went abroad to see investors. I thought these were supposed to be the conversations. It was not well planned that it is obvious. The same NNPC that came out yesterday that said we have enough, all of a sudden change prices because of the same market forces. You see, when I was telling you, don't castigate the marketers, everybody called me evil here yesterday. Am I not being proven right, Ayo? Everybody here was saying, we will send the regulators to go there and clamp down the market. Oh, yeah, go and clamp down the marketers that increase price to over 500. When NNPC has increased price now, go and clamp down. We are waiting. Maybe they say we'll go and seal the filling station. So what change, you should ask? And all of this happens when you don't plan. When you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's what has happened. And all the things I said here on Monday, that's what they are now backtracking and doing. You can see they've set up their meeting Labour and meeting the stakeholders and all of that. Because you see, the supply side economists, and you see, I know this school of thought, it's the supply side economy, the Reaganomics I like to call them, that argue that let supply dominate the economy. They forget that no market is perfect. I remember when the story came out, all right, as regards the subsidy removal, I started research and I remember, and I stumbled on how Reagan pulled out subsidy in 1981 in America. And everybody touted Reagan. But many years down the line, when fluctuation happened, America still had to release its strategic national reserve. So despite the fact that oil is subsidized in America, when it releases its strategic national reserve, when there's shortage, is that not subsidy is doing? Concerning aviation fuel that has been deregulated, recently, didn't the CBN have to step in to say they should still buy aviation fuel for 480 naira to buffer the effect for airline operators when people were flying planes to Abuja for over 100,000 naira? Is that not a form of subsidy? So for the fact that you fully deregulated does not mean that supply will be permanent, will be ceteris paribus. You see, the problem with supply side economists I have is the fact that they don't factor in ceteris paribus in their arguments. They think every market is perfect. Hell no. You might have a tanker driver strike and your supply chain might be affected. So somebody has to step in. But what we are talking about, the bone of contention, is governmental revenue. That this subsidy is frittering with, which we all agree on. But if you want to do it, you have to phase it out and do the palliative. So I'm happy that the government is talking to people now. What they should give us now in the coming days to be able to placate this Nigeria is the framework of how they are going to phase this out. All right? If Nigerians are going to be buying XYZ per litre, is there wage increase? Because you can't say that you are plunging people into over 200% increase in the price of a major commodity like petrol, and there's no commensurate wage increase. Already, I think the federal government was talking about 40% wage increase for federal workers. 200% increase in the price of petrol. Has that not nullified it already? So these are the arguments we are making. And when we make them, it's for the love of country. It's nothing, and it's not on the bounds of partisanship or anything. We want this country to do well. And like Mr. K said, I've got questions for Mele Kyari when he comes here. Because there are some questions we need to ask, even as regards framework, that we've not asked. So let me rest it there. But it's not hard and fast. Supply side economists should remember that in their belief of growing the economy by making the rich richer, the rich can supply, they make a lot of people poorer. Reagan got out more debts in America. The debt increased in America under Reagan. Thatcher also made people poorer. We remember the famous slogan of Thatcher the food snatcher, the milk snatcher. Made people poorer. Childhood poverty under Thatcher increased. So all the supply side economists, I hear your argument, but also remember, there's also the demand side argument. And there's also the monetarism side argument. And there's no one size fits all. And that's why the economists will put a caveat, ceteris paribus. But ceteris is not always paribus. Let's be careful. Let us listen to ourselves, both sides of the argument, get the best argument forward, and make our country grow. And we are here to support President Tinubu to do well.
Well, thank you very much, Rufai, for stating what you said, and Kay, of course. But just to add a few more things in terms of the arguments before us this morning, we had talked about the fact that the labor unions had met with the federal government and it had reached a deadlock. They didn't agree. Going back to pre-inauguration in April, the Labour NLC had come out to say that they wouldn't support the removal of subsidy except the 4 modular refineries in Nigeria would work. Unfortunately, they are not working, and now subsidy has been removed. Therefore, it is no surprise to see that they haven't come to an agreement. What the question then would be is that would this success be hinged on the Dangote refinery working, and would that be enough for the labor unions? Also, what you said, Rufai, in terms of commensurate wage increase, because the prices have gone, and you can see the ripple effect in the price of food, transportation costs, and other things that would affect wage and of workers in Nigeria. Beyond that, there are lessons to be learned from countries that have bitten the bullet in terms of removing fuel subsidy. We can look at countries in Asia, but we can also come down to countries in Africa. In Egypt, just to support the point in terms of planning and a phased out, or a plan with regards to how you remove subsidy to cushion the effect. As someone had said earlier, no matter when it's removed, no matter how it's removed, people will still feel the pinch. It's like doing surgery and not expecting blood. It is part of, you would feel the pinch because you're going to have to pay more. However, you can give pain reliever. You can give certain things to not make it bite as much. What other countries have done, for instance, in the case of Egypt, was that they planned a subsidy removal from about 2014 to end in 2022. So there was a plan years ahead. For Morocco, they had it from 2012 to 2015. In addition to that, they also included the fact there was effective communication. This has been said a number of times. Unfortunately, the president hasn't appointed his kitchen cabinet, which would include his chief press secretary, his spokesperson, to manage communication, because you can see how far communication can go with a statement he made during his inaugural speech and how the effect of that spiraled out of control. He needs information management so that people can understand what's going on, what the plans of the government are, so that there would be no panic. Nigerians need reassurance from their principal, from the president. We need to have that in place. Beyond that, when you're going to affect the lives of the ordinary Nigerians in such a huge way, we must see it as reflective even in government. Perhaps this is a good time to revisit the Oronsai report. We cannot have people queuing on the streets, unable to afford certain things because of how high prices have gone, yet we see the allowances or the huge cost of government still on such a high side. It must be reflective across all boards. And has been said before, perhaps this is a fantastic time for even private business owners to begin to think about the effect on their businesses and the fact that staff members will begin to ask you for a wage increase because the amount of money it took to come to work or perhaps to live is not the same thing anymore. So these are conversations, like you said, Rufai, that also have been had before this happened, but it has already happened. Subsidy has been removed. Therefore, we now begin to look forward as to what should they begin to do. I'm hoping that the next conversation with the labor unions will not take too long, because this has to happen until an agreement is had before things become quite chaotic.
Part of the framework and the solutions I'd like to propose is something I called an Energy Security Act that harmonizes every source of energy for national development, from coal to gas to geothermal and everything we have capacity for. The problem with Nigeria is there's no energy security. So an Energy Security Act, that's what I propose that should be worked on for the future.